Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The new Crash Bandicoot game has finally exists. After so many years of rumors and leaks, it finally became true thanks to the forms of the Game Awards, which I'll explain more details about that until whenever we get started with this video. So, hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, and once again, I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System, or, in this case, NES for short, or, for those of you who lived in Japan, for the Famicom Disk System. So yeah, last time we actually did manage to able to completely done with the forms of Dungeons 3 and 4, but oh and all though, despite we did come across into a death during the course of in Dungeon 4, clearly because of the forms of that particular boss fight, it's a bit tricky to deal with, at least in my opinion. So as a result, but luckily we did somehow manage to able to get certain progression in here, and on top of that, we did somehow manage to get ourselves our Master Sword earlier on. So as a result, that means we can able to actually deal with the game much more comfortable than the likes of how it does it since the beginning portion of the game. But yeah, you probably get the idea about that. So yeah, today for this video is the fact that we're about to be moving on to the forms of, as you can tell, we're now going to be exploring through the 5th dungeon in this game, and this dungeon is called the Lizard, because I can definitely tell because of how the fact that I looked upon Wikipedia and stuff like that, so I can definitely tell from that particular point right there. So this is where the thing starts to get a little bit more difficult, especially this dungeon alongside with Dungeon 6 and onwards, because not only do we able to actually stumble across ourselves some of those exactly the same enemies as before, but now they're all different colored, but also it's the fact that certain rooms can able to actually lead you to some progressioning, or there are a few rare occasions where they lead you to dead ends sometimes, which is incredibly annoying and inconsistent sometimes, especially noticeable if you pretty much know exactly where to go. Then basically though is the fact that he's had to able to take a massive guess, especially because considering how the fact that while, despite the fact that while you do still need to require a dungeon map of any rooms you want to explore into, so yeah, it can be inconsistency sometimes, so, but I digress. So yeah, speaking of related to Zelda stuff actually, is the fact that I can't even believe that it's been almost like 13 years ago since when The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks came out on the Nintendo DS, which I do remember getting the game back in the forms of in Christmas 2009, and I do really enjoyed it most of the time, despite I was a bit lacking in progressioning back in the day. Well, mind you, because of how the fact that the guides doesn't exist for The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks until 2010s and onwards. So as a result though, that I very appreciate able to have, you know, The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, so as a result, yeah, I'm very happy about that back in the day. So, speaking of which though, is the fact that, another game I want to celebrate for, and that is the fact that, well, happy 12-year anniversary of not only, but in forms of how the fact that, well, as you can tell, today's date is of course the 10th of December today, in its case in 2022 today. So, in addition about the fact that with the UK's version of the release of Golden Sun, Dusk Till Dawn, or Dusk of Dawn, I think that's what it says anyway, for the DS game, that's basically happy 12-year anniversary of that particular game, and also happy 12-year anniversary of episode 9 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 1, that's what appears to be Bridal Gossip. So yeah, interesting episode, especially noticeable how the fact that obviously it's usually is the introduction to Fluttershy, which appears to be it's like a deep voice of Fluttershy basically. So as a result though, obtained by the forms of Poison Joke. So yeah, you probably get the idea of how the actual solution about this is, so. But as you can see, since that, as you can tell, that we already taken care of the forms of, in my opinion though, it probably is the most annoying enemies in the whole entire game, that if you thought that the regular Dark Knights was bad enough, prepare yourselves is the most annoying variations of them, and that's what appears to be the blue variation, which not only hit harder, but also take more hits to kill. So as a result though, it can be very stingy on my part, especially that as you can tell I'm almost gonna get myself another game over, thanks to the forms of those godforsaken dark nuts, specifically the blue variations of them. Oh yeah, there are some certain rooms for, well, it only happens in this dungeon alongside with the next dungeon in the future, but as you can tell, I've somehow paid 100 rubies, so as you can see, I've managed able to upgrade my bomb storage, so that means I can now finally carry up to 12 of them, so yeah, pretty swell, especially noticeable if you really want to take down the Dungo, then basically though, that'll be a good way you can able to actually just to grind for more rupees, just in case if you really want to upgrade certain storages for certain items. So, the only time exception though, on the other hand though, is the arrows themselves until the future games in the series, so that might be saying something. So, seriously, I just cannot stress enough about the fact that how much I hate these guys, because you know what I mean, they move way too fast, and also they never stop moving, and on top of that, you know, it has more defense than the forms of how it does on the regular counterparts of themselves. But anyway, the reason why we came in here is because, well, as you can see, we stumbled across a specific flute, so, and we need to use this for, you know, this is another mandatory item by the way, in order able to progress, because without one, you're gonna have to backtrack, and then you have to able to keep on looking at it, so, or keep on searching for it, I meant to say. So, relatively speaking though, we got ourselves a flute, and because of that, we'll use that until whenever we get to the boss in this dungeon, so, yeah, you most likely get the idea of what this is gonna be about, so, at least thankfully you don't need to worry about those, blue variations of those dark nuts until, later on throughout the game though, that it gets a lot more punishing, and on top of that, annoying to deal with, especially because it's bad enough that you have to deal with the forms of the limitations of, you know, Link's movesets and stuff like that, but still, that might be saying something, so, but at the very least though, we still got our potion with us until whenever we almost gonna get ourselves our game over again. Like, I think at this point in time, we somehow died 3 times so far, so it might not be too bad, although, for I've encountered though, that whenever I managed able to did this game back in 2018 as the original Let's Play of the game, that, oh my god, I come across into a lot of deaths in, back in the day, especially because of how the fact that sometimes it can be like, really old school when it comes to likely how the controls worked and the momentum itself too, so it might be felt a little bit more ludicrous for saying that, but relatively speaking though, that's all I can honestly ask for, so I believe we've almost nearly at the end of this dungeon basically. It's pretty straightforward, but it's just the fact that the only difficult part about this dungeon to me though, is the forms of, you know, encountering the blue incarnations of those blue dark nuts. Well, to be more specifically, the blue variations of dark nuts, because, again, they are so annoying to deal with. But, thankfully, that if you try to take care of the forms of the normal dark nut, basically, if you take them down with a simple sweep of the actual Master Sword, it kills them instantly. So, pretty swell, I have to say. In fact, at this point that the regular dark nuts, as far as the enemy encounters are concerned, thankfully they are nowhere near as annoying to deal with, unlike in, whenever you managed able to first time experiencing the, level 3 dungeon and stuff. So, yeah, you probably get the idea about that. So, yeah, it looks like we're almost nearly at the end, so I have no idea where the dungeon map is, though. Well, mind you, about the fact that it has been about, almost 6 days ago since I actually last played this for sure, because it's pretty obvious about the fact that I'm obviously going to be focusing on this game in the weekends, so you probably get the gist of it, so. But I digress. So, another thing I want to talk about is the fact that, like I mentioned this before, about the fact the matter is though, the new Crash Bandicoot game has finally come to its existence. Because after all, it's been about almost 2 years ago since we've last got the forms of the Crash Bandicoot game, because that the last one we've got, although technically speaking, if you want to count the mobile phone, I guess it's been about almost a year ago, since when Crash on the Run released on the iOS phones, or phones to be more specific. So, anyways, let's go and take care of the forms of the next boss in this game, and the reason why we're bringing this flute is because, well, that deals the weakness, which appears to be Dig Dogger. So in some cases though, as soon as when he shrinks to small size, then you can stab him a few times, and there you go. And by the way, that theme, that little note, or that little flute thing sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, that was before when Super Mario Bros. 3 managed able to reuse that sound if you managed to stumble across a warp whistle. So, pretty cool I might add, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking though, that it also borrows the exactly the same themes as far as I recall from other Zelda games, I'm not entirely sure. But either way though, yeah, that pretty much takes care of dungeon number 5. So, yeah, again, self-explanatory, assuming if you try to take care of the forms of those annoying blue dark nuts, because, jeez, those guys are annoying. But anyway, enough about that, so let's go ahead and, well, continue exploring through Hyrule, and we can able to actually, hopefully, try to find the next dungeon, so... And I can definitely tell you right off the bat though, is the fact that I'm pretty sure we've almost nearly at the end of the game already. So I get the strong sense of feeling that much like in Metroid, that this game is going to be pretty short, especially because of the limitations of the NES cartridge fits in or something like that, but it knows where it stands. So anyway, so yeah, the new Crash Bandicoot game actually becomes existent, like I said so many times already, and the game it is called Crash Team Rumble, which appears to be by the forms of something like a party game almost, but more accurately though, like 4 versus 4 online experience or something. So, but from what I've seen the gameplay footage, well, it does sure looks pretty exciting, especially because, well, as far as the actual in-game character models, as far as I'm concerned, they're heavily borrowed from the likes of in Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. So as a result, yeah, it's about goddamn time that that game finally come to exist, thanks to the Game Awards during the forms of this year. So, and as far as I'm aware, Crash Team Rumble is going to be coming out until next year for the likes of PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, alongside with Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, but there's only one system exception though, and that's what appears to be the Nintendo Switch version, which I'm sure they'll do that later down the road, similar to the forms of how it does in Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time on a Switch, but we shall see what happens there. So anyway, so we immediately on to the forms of the next dungeon in this game, and this one appears to be by the forms of, I would say this dungeon is called the Dragon. So in some cases though, there might be some conception as far as I'm aware. And this is where we get ourselves the most annoying enemies in the game, which appears to be those Wishrows. Now, to be honest, the orange variations aren't too bad. However though, there's going to be another variation of these guys until whenever we get to the later rooms, which, believe me, this is one of the times that about the fact that aim at the eyes of Gomer, okay? So that is how, about the fact the matter is though, that is the reason why we've got the bow and arrow for the sake of the forms of earliest points throughout the game or something. So, and I get the feeling, in terms of the forms of Crash Team Rumble, that game is being published by not only for Activision, but also once again Toys for Bob is actually involved in this title, just like the forms of how it does it on, you know, Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, just because of the reused character models from the previous game, so I guess that makes it pretty obvious. And the next thing they did show us, that's what appears to be by the forms of, well, what else? The expansion pass for Fire Emblem Engage. And if I recall correctly, it will contain about 4 waves, so it's nothing that much as far as, you know, wave packs as far as I'm concerned. But at the very least though, that we're able to actually gather certain information about it. So, at the moment, they've shown us Wave 1, which shows us the forms of, let's just say, some more playable characters or something, and as well as the forms of in-game support items and in-game accessories, in addition to the silver card, which I believe it will able to actually release during the forms of in the 20th of January next year. So, yeah, that might be saying something. So, yeah, despite I wasn't really a huge Fire Emblem fanatic, I will admit that right away. But, regardless of such though, there's another game that has also been announced during the course of the Game Awards this year. That's what appears to be another Bayonetta game. So it's like Bayonetta 3 is already, been released, and they moved on to another game, but this time it's like, I would say like a spin-off or something like that, or a side game or something, which appears to be by the forms of Bayonetta Origins, Zelda and the Lost Demon, and that's gonna be releasing on the Switch. So feels like that Bayonetta is actually quite popular these days now for the Switch owners. So I mean, what is this, like Xenoblade Chronicles situation again? Oh, speaking of which though, I'll get into more details about the forms of that particular game in a moment, when it comes to likely, I don't know, anything else for that resides. Now, as far as you already see right there, we are actually immediately, stumbling across ourselves the blue variations of those, Wizrows, which, let me tell you, these blue Wizrows are the most annoying enemies as well. Especially because they never stop moving, just like the forms of how it does it on Dark Nuts, and even Blue Dark Nuts for that matter. And as a result though, they can really seriously just try to able to drain your health like nothing else. And especially noticeable, don't even get me started on the forms of this this skull-like stuff, which I think they're normally called bubbles or something. Well, mind you, I haven't exactly looked upon that much of enemy variety when it comes to Zelda games recently, so I do apologize if I botched everything else up, but at the very least we got ourselves the dungeon map now, so we can essentially try to able to continue things on here. Yeah, this room is really dangerous, especially because Wizrows will like to able to move around, especially the blue variations, and they can able to teleport it too. So, yeah, let me just go ahead and quickly bring out my potion so I can able to replenish our health. So exponentially, once you use that, it's gone for good. So you're gonna have to able to buy another potion from an old woman until you're able to actually just to go ahead and buy one of those two potions again, assuming if you got enough rupees for doing so. So anyway, so the next thing I want to mention is the fact that, oh yeah, speaking of the forms of Fire Emblem Engage, that game will able to support Amiibo, so yeah, that might be saying something. So anyways, let's get in here, because we need to able to get ourselves another item, which appears to be a magic rod, which this allows you to able to actually send projectiles at the forms of certain enemies. So, and I'm pretty sure it might not work against with Wizrows, I'm pretty sure. Well, mind you about the fact that I haven't exactly looked upon certain strategies and stuff like that for the majority of the original Zelda 1, but either way though, that's as far as saying goes, that's pretty much as far as I can talk about. Oh yeah, and another thing they did show us in the forms of the Game Awards, which appears to be by the forms of our first official clip of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and let me tell you, it looks really amazing, and I'm still looking forward to able to seeing that film until next year. So as a result though, it looks very exciting, all things considered, especially because, well, everything else about the movie looks exactly like the video game counterparts of the Mario games. Certainly way up there than the forms of how it does it in 1993 movie, because my god, that movie in 1993 of Super Mario Bros. Movie is just terrible. Apart from Dennis Hopper, which he does manage to able to say this famous like "ba-bomb" or anything else like that, which that did give me a lot of chuckles for that line with "ba-bomb," and even especially noticeable with "monkey" as well. But everything else about the film though, it just blows. Like, you know, with the forms of some pointless jokes, and also just the design of the film is just atrocious to look at. But that's just me. Anywho though, speaking of Mario though, is the fact that we got ourselves the next tour coming up, which I think it's gonna be on Wednesday, I'm pretty sure. That's what appears to be by the forms of the holiday tour. And as far as I'm aware, in Mario Kart Tour, we're able to actually bring back the forms of the track based off from Mario Kart Super Circuit. I'm pretty sure that might be seems the case. That's what appears to be Snowland. So, despite the fact that we've technically managed able to get into that track from the likes of the forms of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Wave 2, for its booster course pass. So 4 months later, they decided able to bring the tour version of that particular track, just to ensure about the fact that you probably get the idea of some similarities when it comes to visual variety. So yeah, it's gonna be one of those times that you might able to actually see that coming. So I'm guessing the only track it needs left in terms of the forms of the certain tracks has not been appeared in Mario Kart Tour yet. And that's what appears to be Shroom Ridge, which I'm still very surprised about the fact that that particular track of Shroom Ridge never seemed to brought into Mario Kart Tour yet. Well, despite the fact that I'm getting super ticked off about the forms of stupid awkward controls again, but that's besides the point, because I just can't stand with the forms of those awkward controls like that. So yeah, in addition to able to bringing back, you know, Snowland from the likes of Mario Kart Super Circuit, they also bring back the forms of certain cosmetic outfits, specifically Christmas-themed outfits for not only for Mario, but also Yoshi, Bowser, and Daisy as well. But, out of nowhere, they also decided able to bring in one of the first, cosmetic characters based off from one of the Koopalings. So in some cases though, we're getting ourselves the cosmetic character for Larry Cooper. So yeah, that's actually interesting, all things considered, considering how the fact that, oh god, oh jeez, so many of those wish rows and also likes. So, but you got to be very careful with those likes, because otherwise, if you've been in there for too long, you lose your biggest shield, so that will suck if that will happen. So, especially considering how the fact that you do still need to keep your big shield at all times, just in case you really don't want to lose it, don't you? So, anyway though, so let's just go ahead and go up, and from here we can able to actually, oh god, another set of oh, sweet. I got myself a stopwatch, so thank you for that. Especially what makes everything else about this dungeon such a cakewalk in comparison, despite, you know, you're about to get butt kicked by a whole group of Wizros, which, Jesus Louise, they got over-exaggerated with these guys, so. Anywho, though. Oh, and talking of which, though, is the fact that, they bring in some Mii racing suits, which I think they'll contain, like, 2 of them. So in some cases, though, one of them is the Santa Mii racing suit. And for that item it contains, for that outfit, it appears to be a Lucky 7. So, yeah, that's saying something. So, I'm guessing it's like, you know, Santa is like, you know, the most important aspect about Christmas, after all. And, also, there's a reindeer racing suit for the Miis, so interesting. But the only item they bring us into is the forms of a dash ring, and that's pretty much about it when it comes to likely special items with those Mii suits in mind. So, nothing special, but nothing more, but that's besides the point. And here's the forms of the Goma, which basically you need a bow and arrow in order to kill it. And it's pretty simple and easy, so thankfully we did somehow one shot at him, and there we go, we got ourselves the 6th piece of the Triforce of Wisdom, so only 2 more to go, and we can pretty much guarantee about the fact that we'll save the next 2 dungeons until tomorrow, so we can potentially try to able to finish this game, maybe at some point in the middle portion of this month, if depending on time though, but relatively speaking though, relatively speaking, is that I think we did somehow caught up with the forms of the uploading schedule so far, so at least we get the thing going, so, and by the way, if you bomb this wall right there, basically you get able to actually access to another potion shop, so, yeah, very curious if you managed able to decide to go after, you know, another potion if you want to buy. But I'm just gonna ignore that for now, because I think I do need to grind for more rubies until specifically later on, just because of that particular upgrade I need to able to go for, and on top of that, just, well, finish the game as to be expected, so, because after all, we've already discovered every single parts of Hyrule right now. This means about the fact that I think for the majority of the remaining parts of the game will have to be the dungeons themselves, so yeah, that's saying something, so. And, on top of all that stuff, though, is the fact that I'm pretty certain about the fact the matter is, though, is the fact that we've only just got about 15 more days to go until, well, Christmas is approaching. So even then though, still excited for it. And yeah, that's not much else I can honestly say about this. Oh, and another thing I want to mention is the fact that, well, have you guys heard of the show called Codename Kids Next Door? Basically, I do heard about the show since when I was little, but I haven't watched it for donkey's years. It used to be on Cartoon Network, and as a result though, I think that particular show is actually celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. So, yeah, pretty cool as far as I usually am aware with that stuff though. But anyway, oh, and talking of which though actually, is the fact that they obviously also release another pass, but in the forms of a, you know, a different kind of game, which appears to be by the forms of Taiko no Tatshinjen, I think is what it says anyway, Rhythm Festival, did somehow manage able to get another paid music subscription for it. This one appears to be about likely 12 more songs, and it already came out about 2 days ago. Like, some songs include Last Christmas, and Habit, I think is what it says, Ideal White, and also Akibosori, I think is what it says anyway, and also Do You Want to Build a Snowman obviously from Frozen, and Let It Go also from Frozen, but this time it's now in English. And speaking of which though, they also got the Japanese version of that song as well, and also Blood Rage, and also some other songs I couldn't think of because they're all basically related to Japanese. So anyway, so let's get back into the swing of things, despite the fact that I was off by quite a lot of rubies here. So yeah, this is going to be the most tedious part about this sometimes, is that, well, I just need to keep on grinding some more rubies, so I need to able to buy one of the most important items throughout the game as well, until you're able to actually get to the forms of the next particular dungeon. So, but I digress. So, yeah, they also managed able to, got ourselves we got ourselves the fairy fountain right there. But that's not to say about the fact that, well, on the other side, as far as I'm usually concerned with, I think this will pretty much lead us to the next dungeon, especially since you remember with the forms of that special flute that we've actually gone through in Dungeon 5? Well, we do need to use that flute for a specific reason for it, especially if you meet up with this old man that actually tells you the specific hint. So, anyways though, yeah, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, as far as I'm aware, also decided able to actually got themselves, well, specific addressed patch notes, as far as I'm aware, because, well, after all, that Wave 3 has already been released since about, like, 3 days ago. And one thing I did not actually realize is the fact that they got tons of patch notes they've obviously did somehow mention about. Like, obviously, they've briefly mentioned about the forms of the custom items and stuff like that, as well as, well, I think I should probably save that conversation until whatever we get to, let's just say until tomorrow's video, or if I go back on to Super Metroid and anything else to be more specific, or if I like to able to mention something more details about the forms of the Game Awards itself, with all that, you know, categories in mind, but I'm afraid I don't think I can probably able to mention about that today, because although I will promise you guys, I will able to actually mention more details about that. So, yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Are you guys excited when it comes to the forms of now that, you know, with that rumored Crash Bandicoot game has now finally comes true? Which, by the looks of all that stuff though, it's now usually calls it Crash Team Rumble. So, yeah, pretty cool. But I don't know if I'm also like able to get it on day 1 though. But I'm very curious about the fact that I don't know if that will be released on the Switch though. But we shall see until likely also later on in 2023. Or sometime in 2024, depending on the certain stimulations. So, anyway, so we meet up at this familiar shop again. But the one item we do need to buy on the other hand though, and that's what appears to be this particular meat right there on the right. So yeah, we need to pay for about 60 rubies with this meat. And because of this though, the reason why we got this is because of something important where we'll get into in Dungeon 7. So, And obviously we just ignored the blue ring because we technically already obtained it from the earliest point of the game. And on top of that, there's no need for able to purchasing some more keys, aside from the fact that, well, we still got 4 keys in our hands. So in some cases though, what's the point of buying the forms of keys to begin with? So anyways though, so let's go ahead and yeah, if you somehow managed able to use the actual flute right there, oh god, there was that weird thing it's trying to get me. But I'm pretty sure it warps you to different spots of Hyrule, which, kind of think about it, it does kind of reminds me of one of those warping stuff for the likes of Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, as well as the forms of Super Mario Bros. 3 if you manage to use the warp whistle. So anyways, we need to hit into this point right here, and oh, sweet, I got my fairy. Okay, that's pretty cool. So if we manage able to play the flute on this spot, oh my, it actually leads us to this little staircase. And what that staircase leads us to? What else? Another dungeon. But again, I'll save that until tomorrow's video. So, however, if you leave the dungeon itself, you need to able to reuse that flute again. So, anyways though, so with that being said though, we're going to endings off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda. It's the fact that we're going to be taking on the forms of the 7th dungeon, which I think this dungeon is called the Demon. So, yeah, see you guys next time for that. Later, fellas.